Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome. Welcome back to Sangha Live if you've joined us already, and welcome for the first time if this is your first experience with Sangha Live. My name's Janice, and I'm just thrilled to have the opportunity to get to be introducing Caverly Morgan for the daily meditation series that she's offering. Caverly Morgan is the founder and director of a nonprofit called Peace in Schools, which is located in Portland, Oregon, and offers mindfulness programming for both teens and adults. And Caverly also is the founder of Presence Collective, a nonprofit, a collective of teachers from all different wisdom traditions that are focusing on offering transformative mindfulness meditation practice with a flavor of social justice. So I encourage you to check out both of those nonprofits. And Caverly has been teaching for the last 2 decades and just brings a wealth of experience. So I'll bring her on in a moment, but before I do, I'm going to go over just a few details of how this platform works if you're new. So Caverly is going to lead a 30-minute meditation, and then afterwards she will open up for question and answer. You can either ask a question by typing one in, or you can also request to go on screen. You can just type that into the chat box. As you can see, Sangha Live really has a thriving community. There's people from all over the world tuning in. So please say hello and share where you're from if you'd like to. Sangha Live is a really amazing platform that provides not only these daily meditation series. So this daily meditation series is being offered actually in response to the COVID-19 outbreak, just a way to support people more. So this has been going on for the last couple weeks, but Sangha Live has been around for quite a long time. For the past 5 years, Sangha Live has offered a weekly 90-minute meditation on Sundays. And in addition to that, you can go to their website and check out the other in-depth courses that they offer. A lot of the previous recordings that can be found in their Dharma library. And lastly, I want to just name that this is all possible because of Dana. So there's a green button right under the video. It says offer a donation or Dana. And I really encourage you, if you have the financial means, to click on that button now or anytime throughout this session, and just give what you can. It supports the platform, it supports those that are working behind the scenes, and it also supports the teachers. So thank you for your support. This is all possible due to just the generosity of the community. And if you're not able to give financially right now, that's okay. This is truly meant to be free and accessible for all. So thank you for being with us this morning. I'm going to bring Caverly on screen and we'll get started. All right. Good morning, Cav.
Good morning. Hello, hello. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Janice. Yeah. Appreciate you. Friends, hello. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening. I'm really glad to be here this morning. I think every morning I mention how much I love this platform and this gathering. So thank you for showing up to practice. If you weren't with us yesterday, no worries. We did a loving kindness meditation, and this morning's meditation will likely touch on some of the things that arose in the conversation after that meditation. As we settle in, I'd love to hear, thank you for saying hello in the sidebar, those of you that have, never required, but always lovely to see where folks are coming in from. And I'd love to hear now, for anyone who would wish to, if you could say a word or phrase, anything you're present to in this moment. Like I said, this meditation will be drawing upon some aspects of that loving kindness meditation, and I'd like to be able to weave in what's here now. So, hello from Portland, hello from France, hello from Cornwall. What's alive for you in this moment? What are you present to? Feeling uncertain? Quite understandable in these times. Tired. So, soft insecurity, sadness, openness. Tender for humanity, generosity and gratitude, lost and peacefulness. One aspect of hearing from you all in this way that I appreciate is it, in our practice, sets the stage for what we're doing in meditation, which is really a lack of doing, because this is the nature of awareness, to accept all that is. Inner carbonated joy. Got nervous with technology. Happy to come back to presence. Human, untethered, forgiveness, grateful, peaceful, feeling lots of shoulds. Friends, thank you. Please settle into whatever meditation, position, posture works for you for this morning. Thank you again for gathering in our shared Dharma hall, for showing up for practice and for each other. Beginning this meditation by taking 3 long, deep inhalations and exhalations. Inhalations and exhalations that fill the whole body. And that release. From the whole body. And then notice the nuances of holding in the body. Is there any gripping or tightening that feels habitual? If there is, not bad, not wrong, simply worth recognizing. In the same way that the conditioned mind runs loops of internal narrative, has rut patterns of thought. Like a tape loop. The body has habits and patterns. Or we could say that conditioned habits and patterns arise in the body as well. Sometimes these habit patterns in the body or in the mind are so well worn that we barely notice them. They operate without our recognition and therefore simply feel like reality. Imagine looking at the world through tinted glasses and continually assuming that that was reality. In meditation practice, the glasses come off. We see the tint simply as something that belongs to glasses rather than a reflection of truth, reality. So in this moment, allow the glasses to come off. See these habit patterns, these conditioned patterns in the mind as a pair of glasses that can be seen and recognized and set aside. Patterns of holding in the body, seen and recognized and set aside. This setting aside is gentle. It happens through a quiet movement of the attention. The attention being placed on these habits and these patterns is what makes them appear as reality. So freeing the attention to disidentify or unhook from those objects allows awareness, consciousness to shine at the forefront of experience rather than lay in the background. Explore in your own direct experience. Does this awareness reject anything? Does this awareness cling to anything? Take the sounds around you, for example. This is a neutral example. Does awareness include fully all these sounds arising? Does it embrace all these sounds arising? What is it that rejects? What is it that withholds? Rest now in that which doesn't reject, doesn't withhold. Rest now as that which doesn't reject and doesn't withhold. Recognize yourself as that which doesn't reject and doesn't withhold. Know yourself as that which doesn't reject and doesn't withhold. Thank you, friends. This is my moment to remind you to contribute if you're able. Support us by making a donation via the green button below, if you're able. It's so beautiful to watch how those who are able have been supporting this platform financially. It can't exist without that. And if you're unable, please know that these teachings are here for the nourishment of all who wish to receive them. So please don't spend time feeling bad about that. Your presence, all of our shared presence is important. So thank you again for being here. So at this point, I'll open it up. I'd love to have an exchange with you, and perhaps we can try again at having folks come on screen if you're interested. I see that there's a question in the question box, so I'll start by reading that. Hello, John and Nancy. It seems hard to recognize all the many habits that we reject or withhold when we are looking through those intent glasses already. Is a clue to simply reflect on what you reject or withhold, maybe one at a time. You could, John and Nancy, you could notice, and it might feel like you're focusing one at a time at what you habitually reject or withhold. That said, another approach would be to allow the attention to rest in awareness. And trust that in resting in awareness, and I like to point out resting as awareness, what needs to be revealed will be revealed. The reason I underline this approach is because we are deeply habituated to want to be in relationship with whatever's arising. So let's say frustration is arising this morning. Notice how quick the trip from observing, recognizing frustration. Notice how quick the trip is from that noticing to a story about it or a focusing on it. That kind of focusing can be helpful in terms of the seeing it for what it is, in a sense, these are that pair of glasses. But a focusing that has us in relationship with it solidifies this sense of a separate self that's going to fix things, change things, get rid of things. So experiment with this other approach for a bit. An approach that is simply aware. The simply aware isn't actually an approach, but the approach to practice could be recognizing yourself as simply aware, and then allowing for the natural recognition of what's arising. I just had this image of there I'm running a convenience store, and I could focus on the people coming through the door that I might have some hunch. Say this one woman keeps coming through the store and I have this hunch that she's been stealing things. I could focus on her and then be in a tangle with her, running stories about her, bringing my own assumptions and my beliefs to what I'm projecting onto her. Now picture being there and simply noticing what is. And from that noticing, being able to appropriately respond. From that noticing, being able to see, I've made this whole thing up. This is a creation in the mind. So pay attention to this focus on focusing and look to see whether there's any old habit around how you approach practice at play. Thank you for writing in. Spencer, hello. I was planning on sending you an email to suggest a type of guided meditation for you to lead. Trying to describe it would have been a long message. Today was exactly the one. I prefer a guided imagery, inviting deeper and deeper. Spencer, thank you. I remember you saying, you offering this image of deeper and deeper. As I say those words, what arises for me is a more and more full revealing, more and more fully allowing awareness to be at the forefront of experience. Awareness is always the nature at the core of all experience. But when the attention is lost in the objects, when we're, for example, to reference John and Nancy, when we're tightly focused on one object, we overlook awareness as something that's at the core of experience. So thank you for writing that. You mentioned there's so much that opened with the meditation. I would very much like a recording of today's session to use the meditation for the weekend days when you're not with us. Thank you so much, Spencer. I appreciate the opportunity to remind folks that these are recorded. I'm delighted to report that. So Janice, if you wouldn't mind just putting that link in the chat bar, that would be really helpful. You would be most welcome to check these recordings out. And please don't hesitate to do just as you did, Spencer, which is to sit with what you'd like to request. My favorite, and I would say the only way that I feel enlivened to teach, is to be in relationship with others, to have ongoing exchange around practice. Otherwise, the joy of just resting in one's own practice is quite alive, but the engagement is what excites me, what lights me up in the teaching end of things. So for you to be in relationship with me, whether it's through the chats or whether it's through your questions, is useful. It pulls things forward regarding the teachings that otherwise might not come forward. I sometimes mention I trained in a Zen monastery for many years, for 8.5 years, and my teacher at that time never prepared Dharma talks. She never came out and delivered a sermon of sorts. The teachings were always arising based on who was in the room and what was happening. And I've taken a page out of that book. I'm not adverse to preparing things, but the most engaging experience for me is the one that's here now, and you're here now. So our togetherness is where the synergy exists for this kind of teaching. Again, practicing on one's own is a joy as well. So thank you, Spencer, for writing in. John and Nancy, you followed up with, during this awareness of sound meditation, those thoughts arose and I experienced being with them. Thank you again. Yes, thank you. It's so helpful, I think, for us to recognize the nature of awareness is to be with what is. So it's not even that we have to practice learning to be with what is. We're in recognizing ourselves as beyond this body-mind, ourselves as beyond the ego structure, ourselves as beyond merely the personality. We touch and know, and therefore express something that's innate and fundamental, something that has nothing to do with an egoic creation or an attainment. So thank you for writing in. Dan, hello. In the past, peace, joy, grace arose. Usually, anxiety, fear, curse is present. Neither seems in my control. Noticing the suffering doesn't seem to heal it. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, Dawn. I need my reading glasses for the light font. The good news, Dawn, is that these things aren't in your control, just as you write. Rather than simply noticing the suffering in hopes that that heals it, give your attention to what is recognizing the suffering. I wish you were on screen with me, Don. I would appreciate most of all getting to have a dialogue in which you name your experience around that. It's not my intention to talk at you. If you can type in, if you're adverse to the screen, no worries, but if you can type in what you notice with that, I could take it from there. What is it that notices the suffering? What happens when you give your attention to that? Again, friends, we're so habituated to see ourselves as separate from experience. So there's suffering, and then so this is the suffering for this metaphor. This is the suffering. And then I get identified with seeing myself as that which notices the suffering, but I see myself as separate from the suffering, and therefore then I try to fix it, change it, control it, do something about it. I try to heal it. What shifts when you recognize that this suffering is arising in awareness? Does awareness itself take this personally? Does awareness itself see this suffering as bad or wrong, something to fix or change, a problem? Only this perception of a separate self sees suffering as a problem, as something to transcend. So the approach I'm describing for you today, Dawn, is an approach of recognizing that you are not that which suffers. It can be hard to be with the truth of that when we're inside this suffering and it feels so real and true to us. This is not to invalidate our experience. It's not to say, you're just making up the suffering. That wouldn't be honoring of the part of us who has this felt sense of suffering. But in the same way that a young child might come to you and say, there's a monster in my closet, you would speak to the child while recognizing that that monster is a creation. I'd love to hear, Dawn, if that's resonating with you. Again, it's a bit tricky. If we were in an engaged conversation, I'd be able to read where you are a bit more. So let me know. But hopefully that gives some place to work with, to practice with. Christopher, you mentioned, thank you. That really helped me. I was immersed in frustration and stress before the meditation and also during the meditation. That shift of focus almost felt like a physical restraint being removed. I really appreciate, Christopher, that you're comparing it to a physical restraint, because as you noticed at the beginning of the meditation, I did acknowledge mental form and body pattern. And it can absolutely feel like a physical restraint to be identified with the conditioned mind in this way. Remember, when we are identified with the conditioned mind, we perceive ourselves to be separate from life, separate from each other, separate from ourselves. Meditation is an act of remembrance. We're remembering that we are not that separate self. We're not attaining an experience that's beyond a separate self. So if we go back to this analogy with the child in the closet, we're not getting rid of the monster in the closet. We're not hovering above the house that has the closet. We're recognizing that we are not that story. We are not that illusion. Again, there is a reality to the illusion. When that child's identified with fear, there's a monster in my closet, there's a reality to that experience. The word illusion can be tricky. But explore in your own practice, what is the nature of this illusion? How do I know this illusion? That could be a question for us to end with today, a place of inquiry. How do I know experience? How is experience known? Through what? Through what means? Jonathan, thank you for introducing the concept of that which does not reject and does not withhold. Beautiful. Yes, it's a way to point. There's so many ways to point to awareness. It's a way to point to what's usually shining at the backdrop or behind experience. Again, in practice, that comes to the forefront. So thank you. Jan, would you consider doing an equanimity meditation soon? Absolutely. Thank you for writing in. And know that today's meditation would be a version of an equanimity meditation. And what I mean by that is when we recognize who we truly are, when we rest in the knowledge of who we truly are. Equanimity simply is, because awareness, the nature of awareness, is equanimous. The nature of awareness is to not reject and not withhold, not cling. Sandra, every day during our morning together, at some point, it kicks, and I'm glad I'm here. It clicks, and I'm glad I'm here. Some days it takes longer than others, and when it happens, it feels effortless. It is wonderful to share this space with a worldwide community. Thank you, Sandra. I couldn't agree more. It's not a problem that we spend time feeling identified with efforting. That is, it's the habit. It's the conditioned pattern. But helpful to touch in with that which is effortless, with that nature of, that true nature of experience. So thank you. Ellen, thank you for writing in. Spencer, thank you. Would you do some longer sessions so there can be more focus on dialogues? Also, can you, at the beginning of each question response, ask if the person would be willing to share the screen? Yes, Spencer, thank you. I will try to underline that. It is very helpful to me when folks are willing to come on. And then please know, folks, that you always can write in on the sidebar if you're willing to come on. It's just, let's just set that stage that it's always the case that you can do that. I hate to be too repetitive. So when you're ready to engage, just know that's an open invitation. And as you can see, not required. I want to honor that for many of you, it's a pleasure to simply be in presence with this community and not to engage in that way. That's absolutely fine. But thank you, Spencer, for writing in. Speaking of a longer session, Spencer and others, if it interests you, please know that on Wednesday evenings, every Wednesday evening, I offer Practice Through Presence Collective. Details are at caverlymorgan.org. I'd love to have you join me this evening. The practice is an hour and a half. It's not 2 hours, Spencer, but we do have a half an hour meditation, and there is more space for more dialogue, and it's through Zoom. Also, no one turned away due to lack of funds. So I would love to see some of you, as many as would be interested in attending, come tonight at 7 p.m. and we can have further dialogue. That's 7 p.m., of course, Portland, Oregon time. So you'll have to do the math on that and see whether it fits for you based on your location. Thank you, Janice, for posting details about the meditation this evening. Friends, thank you So lovely to be here as always. And I hope to see you tonight or tomorrow morning.